Woohoo! It's the big one, imperfection. Why is imperfection so important? Imperfection is actually what connects us. Where there is imperfection, there is freedom. And if we can't make mistakes, we can't grow, we can't learn. It ain't going to be perfect. You're not going to be perfect. And you know what? You don't have to be. And that's what makes you perfect. We can still strive, but we have to enjoy the process and we have to learn from the mistakes. And we have to put movement and connection and acceptance first. It's the joke that all of this was based around. It's the pun of all puns. It's letter P. P for imperfect. That came around from a hat. I was wearing this palace hat, had a big P on it. I took a picture of myself and it said, and I just called it P for imperfect. And it's kind of where this series started from that idea of imperfection. It's such a big one. It's such a big one for me personally, actually. Like, one of the biggest transformations I've been through is letting go of the idea of being perfect. You know, my model of masculinity was so curated, so carefully curated. How I walked, how I spoke. Everything was set up for protection rather than perfection. But it was still very curated, even if I was going, even if I was trying not to be imperfect, it was a created form of imperfection that I was going for. It was the 90s, it was the time for the slacker, Gen X, but I was the carefully curated imperfect person. So learning to actually accept myself as imperfect has been a huge part of my own personal development journey. And I make up that if it's so for me, then so it is for others. So we're going to be looking at imperfection and the need for imperfection. So why is imperfection so important? Well, because we're all imperfect. It's what makes us perfect. That's the irony in that, right? We're all perfectly imperfect creatures. That's what makes us human. So really, the striving for perfection is striving for isolation. The striving for perfection is striving for isolation, because the more that I accept my imperfections and therefore accept the imperfections in other people, the easier it is for me to, one, connect with myself, and two, connect with them. So imperfection actually creates, the acceptance of imperfection creates connection. It also creates movement. So if it's such a good thing, why do we fear imperfection so much? Why do we strive for perfection so much? Well, one is it's a primal fear. The fear of rejection, right? And it's one that's preyed upon. So if you're there and you look in the mirror, or you look at your life and you look around and you think, I'm a fuck up. I'm a screw up. I don't look good enough. I don't dress well enough. I'm not clever enough. If you're thinking any of these things that make you imperfect, one, you're not alone. And two, dude, there's not you don't have much chance not feeling that. There is a $1 billion industry, £1 billion industry, rather. Let me not make it just American, because it ain't, it's worldwide. There is an industry created in making you feel imperfect. Because if I don't feel good enough, if I don't feel perfect, well, I'm going to buy this thing that makes me perfect. That's really what they're selling, whether it be a car, a watch, a piece of clothing, a new makeup line, whatever it is. What they're selling you is perfection. There's a great book called When Did We Become the Bad Guys, which is about the advertising. The big advertising switch in the late 50s, early 60s. Guided by, if I remember rightly, Freud's nephew was one of the main players in this. And it moved away from selling things based on quality, i.e., this fridge is the best fridge you're going to get. It keeps your food coldest for longest. And so you're going to save money because you don't have to throw out so much food. That's how adverts used to be. Suddenly it was, if you ain't got this fridge, your neighbours are going to think you're a loser when they come around for dinner. You need this fridge, right? Then your kitchen will be perfect. And if your kitchen's perfect, your life's perfect. So our desire to not be rejected has been exploited by industries now for decades, and they've got really, really bloody good at it. I mean, these things, no, it's not even like turn the telly off. Is this just telling me that my life ain't perfect, right? A little masculinity thing there, look. Anyway, so you've not got much chance of not feeling perfect, right? Because this is how it works. We have a fear for rejection. And we think, if I ain't perfect, I'm going to be rejected. And then big corporations, anyone trying to sell us something, get in there and they use that. You know what? You're not perfect. This bit's wrong with you. You don't have those. They're last year's trainers. You need these ones. Then you'll be perfect. And if you don't have them, God, that little clique you're in, they're going to reject you. That's how it works. So we're being constantly made to feel that we're imperfect. When actually, that imperfection is what connects us. That imperfection makes people feel safer around us, right? When I show up as ultra me, yeah, what's it like when you meet someone and you think, God, that person, they seem to have it all. It shuts me down, right? Often when I'm running a workshop, I'll make a purposeful mistake early on, right? And then I'll get people to say, let's try something. Let's try saying, I love making mistakes. I love being imperfect. And I try and get people to join along with that. Let's make this a place to be imperfect. Why? Why do I do that specifically when working with men? Because it creates connection. If I'm allowed to be imperfect, you're allowed to be imperfect. If I'm allowed to make mistakes, you're allowed to make mistakes. And if we can't make mistakes, we can't grow, we can't learn. And that goes for the same with our lives, right? So perfection, or rather imperfection, is actually what connects us. Where there is imperfection, there is freedom. So being imperfect gives you freedom. Being imperfect is an act of rebellion, really, in a society that tells us we have to be perfect all the time, everywhere we go, or we're going to be ridiculed. So embrace imperfection is what I say. Embrace it. Be proud of your imperfections, because not only will it buy you freedom, not only will it help you connect with yourself and with others, but it's also self-care. What it feels like when you can get home with the people you trust and you can take your clothes off and you put your rubbish gear on and you sit down and you might have a fart in front of someone you're really comfortable with, or you do those things. It's a relief, isn't it? What a relief that is, right? Because we're dropping perfection. That's why we like home so much. We drop perfection at the front door. Let me just take a little side detour here. That's why it's so important, if you're a parent, to not try and make your children feel they have to be perfect, right? Because could you imagine what that would be like to come home and you can't even be imperfect? Can you imagine how exhausting that would be? Create a space for everyone, particularly children, to be able to just relax, to be able to let all the societal norms, all the societal expectations, all that I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to look this way, especially again with the age of these, people are feeling they have to be perfect all the time. Create a space where you don't have to be. Give yourself and others permission, because it's an act of care. Think about how exhausted you are when you have to try and be perfect, when you have to put your best foot forward. It's tiring, isn't it? Now think about that on a macro level, right? Think how good it would be if we didn't have to believe we had to be perfect for ourselves and for others. It would be a massive relief. Perfection is a curse. Perfection stops moving. How many plans have you not put in place? How many projects haven't been shared with the world because of perfection? How many songs, stories, art pieces do you think are sitting in people's homes and minds because they don't want to share them with the world because they're not perfect? And in fact, I was listening to a really good thing. I was listening to, what's his name? Can I forget his name? The famous hip hop producer who just done a book on creativity. Anyway, it will come back to me. Def Jam Recordings guy. Can't believe I've forgotten it. But anyway, I was listening to this podcast and he was saying that digital music, the perfection you can get with digital music, at the beginning kind of ruined things, right? Because you'd be listening to a drum beat or something and you think, it's slightly off the beat. Let me bring it in, get it perfect. And what you're doing is you're taking the humanness out of it. We like imperfection. I always used to think there was this girl I thought was crazy. I thought she was fantastic. She had a broken nose. And you just don't used to seeing girls, especially a lot of attractive girls with a broken nose. Most of them get it fixed. This girl, she just had a broken nose. Bent like that. After a while, I really grew to like that nose, right? Because it was unusual. There was imperfection in it. We love imperfection in our art. We love imperfection in our music. We love imperfection in clothes. We love imperfection in everything, right? If it's too perfect, it just becomes bland. It becomes vanilla. So why don't we allow ourselves to do that and then start getting our stuff out there? So drop imperfection. You don't have to be perfect. The things you're doing don't have to be perfect. Get connected with others. Start sharing things with the world. Let's show each other everything while it's in process. Let's not judge each other. There's that weird thing, isn't there? Where they go, yeah, just I'm okay with it, but other people are not going to think it's professional. Well, then let's all just drop it, the professional idea. Why are we all turning up as the best versions of ourselves, nervous that someone's going to realise we're not the best version of ourselves when we're all doing it? It's like Emperor's New Clothes. It's like a mad charade, right? Let's just be willing to be imperfect and share all our imperfectness and the imperfect things that we create with each other, and we'll create some movement, and I'm sure we'll create and have some fun, right? Sounds good, doesn't it? You up for it? You up for the challenge? All right, let's give you a challenge then. Where's one place in your life where you're trying to show up as perfect right now, and you know that you're striving for perfection is stopping movement or acceptance? Okay, so where is one place in your life where you're striving for perfection is creating a lack of movement or a lack of acceptance? Think about that. And what I want you to do is purposely let something out in that area or do something in that area that is shared with others that is not perfect. If you always show up to work immaculate, wear something weird, right? If you spend hours and hours and hours and hours and hours proofing everything, leave a couple of the typos in, see what people say, right? You up for that? You up for getting a little bit messy out there? Good, because this life we live is messy. It's a messy world. It's messy. It isn't perfect. It's got great big gaping holes and errors all around the place if we look closely enough. It's what makes it great. It's what makes it fun. There's a Leonard Cohen quote, I think, which is something along the lines of, my brain's gone a bit today, so it says something along the lines of, each one of us has cracks, and that's what lets the light out. That's where the light gets out. Pretty sure that's a Leonard Cohen quote. Rick Rubin. There we go. I knew it'd come to me. Rick Rubin. Rick Rubin. That was the podcast. And that's where I'm going to leave it, right? Because what I could have done is I could have gone back and re-recorded this. Or I could say, leave a little note for Tony. Tony, can you edit it out so we don't leave the mistake that I couldn't remember who Rick Rubin was, right? But I didn't. I just carried on. And now what's happened is it's come back to me, and I got to use it as an exercise to prove how good it is to be imperfect and how it creates connection, how it all ends up all right. It's like I couldn't have made it up. And I bet some of you now, the double bind, will be thinking that I did it on purpose. But I didn't. I was just willing to be imperfect, right? Because I know you guys love me anyway. And I love you all deeply and from the bottom of my heart. All you imperfect, crazy nutters out there with your neurosis and all your other stuff that's going on. All them bits of you that ain't right, those lovely bits, the wobbly bits, we all love them really, right? We all love the little wobbly bits, really. We all love the little bent bits, right? Who just wants to be straight all the time, right? Who just wants to be stuck all the time? Let's get a little bent. Let's get a little bit flexible. Let's do what the fuck we like, basically, because we're only here for a little while. So let's just love each other where we can, right? And that don't mean... Actually, I'm going to end it on this note. It doesn't mean settling, right? The striving for excellence is a good thing, but that's different to perfection. We can still strive, but we have to enjoy the process, and we have to learn from the mistakes, and we have to put movement and connection and acceptance first. It's okay to go for excellence, but don't let that isolate us. Because we don't have many shots at this thing called life, right? So, keep connected. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep doing the work. It ain't going to be perfect. You're not going to be perfect. And you know what? You don't have to be. And that's what makes you perfect. So with that, I'm out of here. Take care. Bye.